Stop being too friendly. People don't respect what's easily available. Friendliness is widely seen as a virtue. From early childhood, we're taught to smile, share, and get along. Be nice, we hear from parents and teachers, as though that simple command unlocks all social harmony. But as we step into the real world, the office, the dating scene, the marketplace, we start to notice something strange. Nice people are often overlooked. The ones who are always available get ignored. The kind ones are taken for granted. And the overly friendly ones? Often dismissed as weak, boring, or, ironically, inauthentic. Why is that? Why do we devalue what is freely given? Why does the world, both psychologically and philosophically, seem to reward distance, mystique, and even a hint of danger over warmth and availability? The answer lies in a collision of ancient philosophy, modern psychology, and human nature itself. 1. The paradox of availability. At the core of this issue is a paradox. We say we want kindness, openness, and emotional honesty, but we often respect, pursue, and admire those who withhold these very things. To understand this, we must explore one of the oldest psychological principles: scarcity increases value. In economic terms, scarcity is what drives demand. Diamonds are expensive not just because they're shiny, but because they are rare. In social dynamics, the same law applies. What is always available loses its value, not because it's inferior, but because its abundance dilutes its perceived worth. We don't chase the sun because it rises every day, but we chase a solar eclipse because it comes once in a generation. Friendly people are like the sun, always present, always warm, always shining. And sadly, that constancy breeds indifference. 2. The Nietzschean warning. Friedrich Nietzsche, ever the provocateur of human psychology, once warned against becoming too agreeable. In Thus Spoke Zarathustra, he writes, "He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises." This cryptic line holds a profound truth. Even in hatred, there is a form of engagement and valuation. But in indifference, there is nothing, not even contempt. Nietzsche believed that power lies not in being liked, but in being respected. And respect, he argued, often demands distance, boundary, and even conflict. To Nietzsche, the person who is always yielding, always compliant, always available, is not noble. They are a slave to the crowd's expectations. And in being too friendly, too nice, they trade away the very things that inspire reverence: individuality, mystery, willpower. So if you are always friendly, always accessible, you may be making yourself emotionally cheap in the eyes of others. 3. Psychology of human attraction and social hierarchies. Modern psychology backs this up. Research in attachment theory, behavioral economics, and social dominance theory shows that people subconsciously associate high value with limited access. A classic experiment by psychologist Stephen Wirtschel involved giving participants 2 identical jars of cookies, one with 10 cookies and one with only 2. Participants consistently rated the jar with only 2 cookies as more desirable. Why? Scarcity equals value. The same applies in relationships. People chase those who are slightly aloof, who maintain strong personal boundaries. The cold executive is admired, the overly helpful assistant is overlooked. The distant lover is romanticized, the always available one is ghosted. This is not just superficial preference, it is an evolutionary bias. From our tribal past, we learn to compete for the best mates, the highest status allies, the rarest resources. And we still carry this survival software today. Too much friendliness reads as neediness, and neediness is often mistaken for lower value. 4. The hidden cost of niceness. Being friendly is not inherently bad, but being too friendly, too often, to too many people, comes at a hidden cost. Here's what excessive friendliness can signal to others, often subconsciously. 1. You have no standards. If you're equally friendly to everyone, even those who treat you poorly, others may conclude that your kindness isn't a reflection of their worth, but of your lack of discernment. 2. You're trying to please. People sense when your friendliness is a mask for needing validation. This triggers suspicion and reduces respect. It feels manipulative, even if it's unconscious. 3. You have nothing better to do. Harsh as it sounds, availability is often read as a lack of demand. Just like a restaurant that always has open tables may not be seen as worth visiting, a person who is always emotionally on call starts to feel expendable. 5. Boundaries are the new power. The solution is not to become rude or cold, but to become selectively warm. This is what creates depth and authenticity in relationships. People respect those who set boundaries, value their time, say no, are kind, but not overeager, can walk away if they are not respected. In fact, the most powerful people often say the least, offer the least, and give access to themselves as a reward, not a starting point. When you're too friendly, you're giving away the reward for free. And when the reward is free, it is no longer a reward. 6. Philosophical echoes, Stoicism and self-mastery. The Stoics, especially thinkers like Epictetus and Marcus Aurelius, taught that dignity lies in self-command, not in being liked by others. Epictetus warned his students not to value the opinions of others too highly, especially if it meant betraying one's principles. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "The approval of others? Is that what you seek? Look within. Be your own master." From this perspective, being overly friendly becomes a form of self-abandonment, a desperate gamble to buy affection at the cost of self-respect. True virtue, for the Stoics, was measured not by how many people you please, but by how deeply you live in alignment with your values. They would ask, are you being friendly out of love, or fear, generosity, or weakness? 7. The fear behind friendliness. We must also confront a difficult truth. Excessive friendliness is often a defense mechanism. It hides fear of rejection, fear of conflict, and fear of being alone. Psychologically, it stems from a fawn response, one of the 4 trauma responses, along with fight, flight, and freeze. Fawning is when we appease others to avoid danger, judgment, or abandonment. It masquerades as kindness, but it's really anxiety in disguise. People pleasers are not inherently good people, they are scared people. And this fear can be smelled from miles away. Predators, manipulators, and narcissists feed on this energy. It signals compliance. Wolves don't respect sheep, even if the sheep are smiling. 8. Reclaiming your gravity. To be respected, you must reclaim your gravitational pull. Imagine yourself as a planet. If you're too small, people drift past. If you're too warm, too accessible, too inviting, you become a moon in someone else's orbit. But if you become grounded, boundaried, self-assured, others feel your pull. They come closer. Not because you begged for their presence, but because your presence had weight. Friendliness is best when it is earned. When people know it comes from a place of power, not need. 9. But what about love? Compassion? Connection? Some may object, isn't this all a bit manipulative? Shouldn't we be open-hearted? Yes, but not at the cost of self-respect. Love without boundaries becomes obsession. Compassion without discernment becomes martyrdom. Connection without self-awareness becomes codependence. Philosophy is not cold detachment, it is the art of living with wisdom. And wisdom teaches us that not every smile is noble, and not every open door is kind. True maturity is knowing when to be warm, and when to withdraw. When to give, and when to preserve your energy. When to chase, and when to let others earn your presence. 10. The final irony. In a strange twist, when you stop being too friendly, people often become more attracted to you. They sense your value. They respect your boundaries. And most importantly, they trust your friendliness, because it is no longer cheap. It is rare. It is earned. The same smile, once withheld, suddenly carries more meaning. The same kindness, once rare, now feels divine. And the same presence, once distant, now feels magnetic. But beware, this shift also awakens new dangers. Because when you stop being too friendly, you start becoming powerful. And power, in any form, attracts envy, projection, and even manipulation. What happens when people start respecting you, but also resenting you? What happens when your new boundaries create loneliness, or even backlash? How do you wield this new self-respect, without becoming cold, cynical, or disconnected? These questions takes us to the next chapter, where we explore the dark side of detachment and how to find balance in a world that both punishes and rewards mystery. Previously, we uncovered the uncomfortable truth. People often don't respect what's too available. If you're always friendly, always present, always saying yes, you risk becoming invisible. We explored the psychology of scarcity, Nietzsche's brutal wisdom, and the hidden cost of being too nice. But now that you've pulled back, now that you've created distance, now that you've stopped being too friendly, you might notice something strange. You feel alone. You feel a little cold. Maybe even a bit lost. Congratulations. You've entered the dark side of detachment. Let's talk about it. 1. From friendly to frozen. When pulling back goes too far. Here's what often happens. After years of being too nice, you finally set boundaries. You stop people-pleasing. You stop giving unlimited access to your time and energy. And it works. People start to treat you differently. They notice you. They respect you. But then you hit the other extreme. You start closing off. You trust less. You love less. You protect yourself so much that no one can get close anymore. You've replaced people-pleasing with emotional armor. This is what I call the overcorrection trap. You go from being too open to being emotionally unavailable, friendly to frigid. Yes, people respect you now, but do they really know you anymore? Do you even know who you are without needing their approval? 2. You don't have to choose. Respect and connection are possible. Here's the truth most people miss. You don't have to choose between being loved and being respected, between being kind and being powerful, between openness and boundaries. You can have both. But it takes emotional maturity. You need to shift your energy from being nice to be liked, to being authentic because it's who you are. Don't smile because you're afraid of conflict. Smile because you genuinely feel warmth. Don't say yes to avoid rejection. Say yes when it aligns with your values. Give, but from a full heart, not from an empty need. 3. How psychology backs this up. Modern psychology calls this secure attachment, the ability to connect deeply without clinging, to give without losing yourself. It's what happens when you're no longer seeking approval, but also not afraid of love. You can walk away when needed. You can say no without guilt. And you can say I care without fearing you'll be taken advantage of. This balance is rare. It's powerful. And it's exactly what draws the right people into your life. Because here's a secret. People don't want you to be too nice. They want you to be real. 4. The magnetic power of selective warmth. The most respected people are often paradoxes. A warm but firm. A calm but intense. A kind but unshakable. That's the energy people admire. Not desperation. Not people-pleasing. Not friendliness on autopilot. When your time is valuable, your words carry more weight. When your love is rare, it becomes sacred. When your yes has boundaries, people start to listen more closely. You become magnetic. And that's not manipulation, that's self-awareness. 5. The loneliness of power. But here's the trade-off. As you grow stronger, more grounded, more self-respecting, you may feel lonely at first. Because some people only liked you when you were easy to manipulate. Some only stayed because you never said no. And when you stop overgiving, they disappear. Let them. Their exit creates space for real connection, for people who respect your boundaries and still want to be near you. People who don't just want what you give, they want you, fully and honestly. 6. The final shift. Stand in your worth. You don't need to be cold to be strong. You don't need to isolate to be respected. You just need to be clear on your worth, and let your friendliness flow from that. Smile, not because you want to be liked, but because you like yourself. Be kind, not because you're afraid of rejection, but because you've rejected the idea that your value depends on others. That's the difference. That's the shift from emotional scarcity to emotional sovereignty. 7. Final thought. Let the world adjust. So here's where we land. You're not for everyone, and that's not a flaw. That's your filter. Don't be afraid to disappoint people who were never truly for you. Don't water yourself down just to be more palatable. You've done the work. You've stepped out of the people-pleasing cage. You've claimed your time, your voice, your energy. Now, let the world adjust. Before you go, if this message resonated with you, if you've ever struggled with being too nice, too available, or too overlooked, then this channel is for you. At Mindhack, we dive deep into philosophy, psychology, and the dark corners of human behavior to help you think sharper and live stronger. So don't just watch and scroll. Like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more raw, honest, mind-expanding content. Your journey toward self-mastery is just beginning. Let's walk it together.